Hello my fiery friends, the Infernoman here with our latest deck tech for you to build. And for today's deck tech, we'll be covering Cabaretti Treasures. That's right, we're going to be jumping into the Explorer format to show you how you can play this fun treasure-filled deck. The only reason why I'm doing this in this format instead of standard is because Winota, as of the posting of this video, is finally banned out of the format. So this means that we have a much better opportunity of having this deck go off and have a lot of explosive turns, thanks to the fact that that card is finally gone. But in any case, for those of you who are new to the channel, here's how we do this. First off, we're going to show you how to put this deck together by explaining first the creatures in the deck, and then we'll cover the non-creature spells, we'll then go over the land base, we'll then go over the sideboard, and again we'll have a match or two against Sparky to show you how the deck is meant to be played. If you do want to put this deck together, it will only cost you a total of 11 rares and 1 mythic to put together, so it is fairly budget on Arena, and it should be easy enough for you to put together with all the cards you've been collecting. If you are a fan of budget jank fun deck techs, please make sure to give a like on this video and subscribe to the channel to see all the deck techs we play, the gameplay we put out there, pack openings, and more. But enough of me rambling on about my channel, let's go ahead and jump right in. Now to begin, we're going to be covering our 16 creatures in the deck. In the 1-drop slot, we will have Goldhound. We sack this basically to add 1 mana of any color. Not really much to talk about on this, but there's a specific reason why we're using Goldhound than, I don't know, say Llanowar Elves, since we are playing in Historic, but we'll get to that in a little bit. In the 2-drop slot, we have Gala Greeters and Prosperous Innkeeper. The Prosperous Innkeeper, you've seen it probably before. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, you gain 1 life. On the initial cast that we have it, you get to create 1 treasure token. For Gala Greeters, however, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, you choose one of their abilities that hasn't been chosen this turn. So once each turn, basically, whenever we get to trigger off, we could put a +1/+1 counter on the creature. You can create a tapped treasure token, or you get to gain 2 life. Before we get to Devilish Valet, let's talk about our other creature, Jennifer Jetmir's Second. This is a really sweet card, an elf druid that whenever we create 1 or more tokens, you could instead create that many 2/2 green cat creature tokens with haste, or that many 3/1 green dog creature tokens with vigilance. So you can kind of see already where this is going to go. Basically, you want to create as many of these cat and dog creature tokens to go off. But we need a payoff for that, and that's where Devilish Valet comes into play. This Devil Warrior for 1/3 with Trample and Haste gets to double its power whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control. Get out the early creatures, gain some life off of the Prosperous Innkeeper to keep us in the game. We want to create tapped treasure tokens. Ginny Fae basically converts those into cats and dogs. Keep in mind, however, that the tapped trigger will affect if you make a cat or dog. So I would probably recommend maybe just make dogs. Only use the cats if you can get an untapped token out. And then as you keep going off, Devilish Valet, if it's on the field, will start getting bigger and bigger, and hopefully we can get a 1-hit knockout against our opponent. We'll be playing a total of 20 non-creature spells in the deck, which is going to be a mix of options that we can use in case if our main game plan doesn't work, and also, of course, the ramp that we need. First off, let's cover our plan B and C to the deck. Dragonspark Reactor basically gets stronger and stronger and builds itself up as long as we have more artifacts enter the battlefield. Again, since we are playing a ton of treasures, we are going to create a lot of counters added to the Dragonspark Reactor. And of course, what's nice is the synergy is you could pop off those treasures to pay for the Dragonspark Reactor to sack it and then deal that damage to our opponent's face. Yes, it can also do some damage to 1 target creature, but we don't really care about that. This is meant to be a plan B in case if we just can't get off with any of our creatures, and we could just use the Dragonspark Reactor as a finisher. Kazul's Fury is more of like our plan C to the deck. So as you saw, our Devilish Valet will get really powerful, and if we can get it through, it does an amazing job on its own. But don't be surprised, of course, if your opponent tries to blow it up. So in that case, same thing, the synergies that we get from all the treasures that we're going to stockpile, we can then pop those off in case our opponent is trying to target our super powerful Devilish Valet, say like it's about to do, I don't know, maybe like 20 damage to our opponent's face or more. Then we can just sack it right here using Kazul's Fury and then smash our opponent's face instead, and ensuring that we at least get some damage out of the deal. And again, in a pinch, it can come in as a tap land. Cabaretti Charm for 2 reasons why we're doing it. 1, it's a flexible card, as you can see. We can either pump our creatures, we can make tokens with it, or we can deal some damage to a creature planeswalker. But of course, because of how this deck is, it's on flavor. We gotta have it. Stimulus Package, Seize the Spoils, and Big Score are our treasure producers. Specifically, however, Stimulus Package is great because we can then sacrifice our treasures to create more tokens, which can then be converted from 1/1 citizen creature tokens into cats or dogs. And either way, There's a really sweet loop with this and the Gala Greeters, but we'll show you that, of course, in the example a little bit later in the video. Seize the Spoils and Big Score, not only do they create us treasure tokens, but again, it helps us churn through our deck, give us a card draw that we need. And finally, on the top end, we have Bootlegger's Stash, just to help us turn all of our lands into treasure producers, to then trigger off everything else this deck is trying to do. For your land base, it's mostly going to be pretty simple here, just a little mixture of everything. 5 mountains, 5 forests, 4 copies of Razor's Ring. They come in tapped, but we really want them to draw a card if we are playing them in the mid to late game. Same thing with the Jetmir's Garden. For these 2 rares, you can then fix your mana early, but if you're playing in the mid to late game, you can cycle them away from another extra card. 4 copies of Cabaretti Courtyard just basically helps us ensure that we can find our forests and mountains and play them on time. That extra little life gain also helps us out to just keep us stable. And since we are an explorer, we can take advantage of the fact that we can play Ramunap Ruins. I do want to mention though, if you want to actually play this deck in standard, get rid of Ramunap Ruins, and you have this deck already ready to go on a budget for best of 1. For your sideboard, we'll just do a little bit of everything like we always do in these budget deck techs. You'll have a little bit of protection using Snakeskin Veil. You'll have Soul Guide Lantern as your graveyard hate. Weathered Runestone was mostly here against Winota. You probably don't even need it anymore, but really kind of is up to you. Return to Nature for Artifact Enchantment hate, and also a little extra insurance against immediate graveyard hate. Flame Sweep for mostly a small little wrath against more of our enemy token decks. Collision Colossus to help pump any one of our creatures to force through a little bit of extra damage, and the ability to take out a flyer doesn't hurt either. Witty Roastmaster can also supplement with our Devilish Valet, mostly just because since we're making a lot of creature tokens, in case we just need to get a little bit of extra damage, we can ping our opponent down enough where we don't have to go super big with the Devilish Valet. And finally, our only other rare in the deck is going to be Domri and Anarcha Bolas. This helps pump up all of our tokens if we want to go wide and do some damage, gets us a little extra mana in a pinch, or if we have to take down to take out a pesky creature we just can't deal with. And with that, let's go ahead and have a match against Sparky to show you how the deck is meant to be played. Okay, everybody, so as you can see right here, we're going to be trying to go off real quick with Ginny Phase on the field. We have Gala Greeters. We do have our Devilish Valets. We are a little light on mana, however, but we also have a Prosperous Innkeeper to keep us stable. So we're going to play the Prosperous Innkeeper. Then we can create a little bit of extra power here. So here's how we're going to do this. So we'll gain 2 life because we need to stay alive. We will create a dog, which also triggers off Gala Greeters again. We can then create a tapped creature token. It'll be also a dog because it comes in tapped, which also triggers off again. We'll put a 1/1/1 counter. So we're now in a decent spot. We have a little bit of insulation versus our opponent. Sparky's probably going to go swinging with everything. Okay, they do not. So we're going to use a dog here just to survive. That gets out of the way. All right, and we got a forest. Okay, so how do we do this? Okay, so you can see right here we have the Devilish Valet, but we also need to create some more treasure tokens. So here's how do we do this? Seize the Spoils. We will throw away 1 Devilish Valet. Draw 2. We have, let's see, create a dog. So the dogs do some pretty good blocking versus Sparky. Tapped treasure token. Another dog. So you can see we've got quite the set of dogs here, but we also can stabilize now thanks to Prosperous Innkeeper and the Greeter. Okay, so next, Forest. Dragon Spark Reactor. Charge counter on it. Okay, no attacks. So the Dragon Spark Reactor at this point doesn't really do much, only because, again, all of our tokens are being turned into, instead of treasures, they're just now dogs, which is fine because we're still just trying to get through our opponent here. So, with Sparky already tapped out, we'll block the Fencing Ace since it has double strike. Let's see, we will take out some of these other creatures here. Alright. Attacking, they lose some creatures. They have a Sarah Angel, which is going to be a problem for us. So we're going to have to get rid of that pretty quick. Devilish Valet, however, comes in. Okay, so we'll create a token. Create always the treasure token first if you have Ginny Fae out, because you want to make sure that you can create more. You can create more creature tokens, which will trigger off the Innkeeper, triggers off the Valet, as you can see right here, and then go with the counter. Alright, so we're now in a pretty good spot right now, but we're not quite there yet. We're going to see if we can try to get Seize the Spoils in a bit. Alright, so they pacify Ginny Faye, which is fine. We don't worry too much about her. We just need her to trigger off everything else. Okay, so seize the spoils. Throw away the forest. Draw 2. Alright, another dog created, which now begins the cycle again. Token first, another dog. Triggers off all of this. 1 counter on the Gallagher. Prosperous Innkeeper, which creates more tokens. We gain 2 life. Create a dog. More triggers going off. Alright. Unfortunately, we hit the cap with the Gallagher, so it's not going to do much. But look at what happened with the Devilish Valet. Woohoo! It is now a 16, and it still has Trample and Haste. So we are at this point just going to swing, and we can go wide here. Gallagher's, Devilish Valet. Actually, we'll keep the Greeter back, just in case. And we'll just swing it with the Devilish Valet. Do they block? They do. So we get that out of the way. We lose the Devilish Valet, but we are now getting them down to 8, and we're at 17. So we're currently where we want to be at. We have enough dogs now where we can just smash through against Sparky without anything to worry about. Okay, so finally, you have a couple ways of winning here. So Goldhound triggers off. That is an artifact. Tap treasure token. Create a dog. More triggers. Counter on the Gallagher's. Everything else goes off. And there you go, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed that. We're just going to do one massive swing here. Sparky can't really do anything to stop us. Even if they stop all of our creatures, we can still go off with the Dragon Spark. We have Ramanop Ruins. You know what? Why not? I'm just going to sacrifice... Sacrifice that. King for 2, down to 6. Finish off everything. There you go. That's it. Alright, hope you enjoyed that. Alright everyone, if you are still hanging in there, you are still watching the video at this point, thank you so much. You are my true fiery friends. And as always, for those of you who stuck around, give a shout out below in the comments. And for that, you also will get to see how I would help you upgrade this deck. So as you can see again, we don't really change too much in the main deck. We're going to focus still on the basic game plan. All we're just going to really do is upgrade pretty much the land base. I know that's not much of a surprise, but because we are an explorer, we have the ability to use the shock lands now. We can get a full playset of Jetmir's Garden. You can add in a couple of the pathway lands. Get in a copy of Lair of the Hydra. This is going to be basically plan D to the deck, I guess. If you can get all those treasures off and you still can't cast anything, a giant Lair of the Hydra can also help you close out the game. We're going to get a copy of Boseiju, who endures in the main deck, a copy of Sokazen, and of course we'll slip down to 1 Ramanop Ruin, so then we go down to 3. Basically, again, the whole idea is now we have a little bit of white to go into an extra color to ensure that we can get our Cabaretti Charm to go off easier. We also have 1 extra card that also goes into white in the sideboard, but we'll talk about that in a second. Real quick, the one card that I would also kind of be on the fence on, and this is honestly personal preference, Gilded Goose is fine as an upgrade, but if you want to keep your treasure dogs, that's perfectly fine as well. And the reason for that is the treasure dog that we mentioned also can trigger off with Stimulus Package because of its typing, and also it is still an artifact, which also would trigger off your Dragon Spark reactor. But speaking of Gilded Goose, the main reason why I would want to consider this and the upgrades is it creates food tokens. As you kind of see, our deck is a little bit on the slow side to generate all those treasures, and sometimes they get blown up very easily. So at least with food tokens, you can also gain some life on the side to help keep yourself stable, at least until you have what you need. Otherwise, you can keep generating more foods to help you then turn them into mana later on with the Gilded Goose. The only other thing I would do is I would probably pull out 1 Kazul's Fury and put the extra one into the sideboard and instead add in Zorn. Zorn here would just help us create more treasures to go off faster. So that's mostly what I would put into the main deck. If you want to add in anything else, I mean, there's not really too much. Some people consider maybe Unexpected Windfall, but the only reason why I don't want to do that and keep Seize the Spoils is just because the mana curve is already mostly at a 3-drop, and I don't want to go too much onto the 4-drop, even though you'll be creating a ton of treasure tokens. That's kind of personal preference. I'm still playing with it myself, but so far I've had mostly success with this version of the deck. As for the upgrades in your sideboard, we don't honestly have too many things to swap out. Keep your snakeskin veils for protection, keep your soul guide lanterns. Again, if you want to put in Grafdigger's Cage, that's an option too, but because now in Explorer we don't have to worry about Winota, you're less in need for Grafdigger's Cage. I honestly want to keep the Witty Roastmaster because I love burning out our opponents, so again, this is just my personal preference. And then Heroic Intervention protects your whole board. Cinder Vines to just destroy our opponents that are using a lot of control style cards, and also just get rid of those artifacts and enchantments in a pinch. Again, mentioning that Cool Soul's Furies in the sideboard. Outlaw's Merriment is actually kind of cute with this deck because although it's mostly going to have you create random tokens, if you are having that trigger off with the Ginny Fae, then you can consistently get your cats or dogs whatever you need at the moment. At least one each turn, which is kind of nice. And then finally, you're going to upgrade your Wrath into Burn Down the House. Burn Down the House can create us some devils. Same thing. They can convert over to cats or dogs if we need to. But also that 5 damage to everything and planeswalkers is also a nice way to kind of just clear the board if you need to. And there you have it, everybody. Cabaretti Treasures for you on a budget. So you tell me in the comments below, what do you think? Are you a fan of this style of deck where you have a super amount of flexibility in either creating go wide or go big strategies? You have alternate win cons, or are you a fan of treasures? I mean, I know some people are a little hesitant now that treasures are starting to get a little out of control in Magic, but honestly, I think they help us out at least on budget decks like this. But either way, let me know in the comments below, and I would love to hear from you. But aside from that, thanks again for watching, everyone. And just remember that no matter what you do play in the game of life, always be sure to burn bright. Later.